One of the questions I get from my clients is, how long is this really going to take? There's a lot of conflicting information out there. And today, what we want to do is just to try to cut through the noise and give you like a realistic, understandable timeline that you can grasp so that you have some sense of how long it is going to take to go through the recovery process from pornography addiction. And to be clear, we're not talking about just quitting and however long that may or may not last for. What we're working on today is getting into a well-established recovery. What does that mean? And how does a person get into this reliable level of sobriety?
So as we start here, I just want to say welcome to our new studio. We've had a little bit of fun setting this up. And as we go on here, talking about pornography addiction recovery, I just want to say I treat usually on the betrayed end of things, like the betrayed spouses who are experiencing the fallout of the pornography addiction. And so Caleb's more the expert on treating the pornography addiction. So I'm going to be asking him questions and seeing if we can pull this out of the expert in the room.
Okay. Well, should be good. I've been doing this for over 15 years. So
Yeah. Yeah.
not,
So
not my
before
first trip around the block, but let's jump into it.
before we go all nerdy though, I just want to say recovery is possible.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
and it maybe is more achievable than they think.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of times folks come to us and they've quit repeatedly.
Yes.
There's a lot of frustration on their part and sometimes a lot of fear and sometimes even sort of that underlying question of like, can I ever really get over this thing? Like the deep-seated sense of shame is began to form just around the inability to stay sober. Because I promise, make all these vows to myself, delete all the stuff off my phone, lasts for 3 weeks or 3 months, and then boom, I'm back in it. So
And then the am I so broken
yes.
that
And
I
then
can never get out of it?
yeah, for sure, which is such a, disturbing question to have to sit with and not know an answer to. So we kinda wanna give some peace to that question because this is also a question that we get asked a lot during the intake process when people are
Mhm.
like, "You know what? I need counseling. I need to talk to someone who's an expert in this." They ask us this question, "How long is this gonna take?" And that's sometimes done because they have a spouse who's being hurt by it, and I think for Linda, sometimes it's done too just because financial reasons is another good one. Like, how
Yeah.
many sessions am I gonna have
Yes.
to pay for? That's practical. We know that counseling is expensive. And, other times it's I think folks are sort of informally trying to assess, like, how I'm using their language, like, how damaged they are,
Yes.
if you will, and that's not really a term that I use at all in counseling.
Mhm.
But, just in the vernacular, that's also kind of lingering that sort of background shame issue of like, am I really messed up
Yeah.
around this?
Okay, before we get into the timeline part of it,
Yeah.
because I want to talk about that too. But why is this a process? Why we did an episode on why can't I stop? So I'm not
Yeah.
quite asking that, but what's happening that I can't stop?
Well, there's things going on at a few different levels. One is there's always some roots, generally almost always some roots back to childhood.
Okay.
So there's deeper issues that are going on there. Another thing is because you've been doing this thing for a while, there's neural pathways that have formed in your brain around this addiction. There's a dopamine reward circuit that is like actively in play here. So you are getting a hit from this. Like it's a legit interaction and addiction, and it has a legit sort of interaction cycle with that addiction. So that's going on as well. And then over time too, like this thing has just become a coping mechanism. And so in that sense, like it's a familiar friend to you. And when you have that and you've been leaning on that for a long time, you can't just walk away from that like this. You know what I mean? Like you have to understand why you've been leaning on it and figure out what you want to lean on instead. And then you got to kind of transition that lean over to these healthy things.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of parts to this. And that's for the mild to moderate cases even.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So then how can the brain heal? If I've got these neural pathways which are so ingrained in in my head and they give me the hit,
Mhm.
how can I have hope to heal?
Well, it's gonna take a little bit of time, but it does have to come with, like, even I've said that people quit and then they fall back, they quit and they fall back.
Mhm.
But when you're working with a counselor, what we often see is people are able to stop, fairly quickly, fairly early on in the process, and that's in some ways is not a big deal that they've done that before and they've stopped for a while. But, As you stop, things begin to bubble up and you begin to notice like what you were coping with by this, right?
Mhm.
And so that becomes fodder for like therapy. Now we can begin to work on those things and to treat those things as well. And in the brain, because you're taking care of that, like a concurrent process that's also happening is we are weaning your brain off that dopamine hit. So sometimes I put it like
Mm.
this. So, like a common prompt for people to turn to pornography is loneliness. Okay.
Okay.
So, in the super simplistic terms, there's a pathway in your brain from loneliness to I can take care of that with pornography because it will give a pseudo connection to me and will pain medicate that loneliness. What we're looking to happen is we're looking for that neural pathway to begin to fade by disuse.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, sort of like our old property was an acreage, and the deer would make pathways through the hills, and you would see the pathways and stuff like this. And then maybe like a tree would fall down, or somewhere else, somebody would put a fence across it, and the deer would reroute another way. And eventually, like that pathway would begin to disappear, and the grass and the weeds and whatever just grew up through it, and it's gone. And it takes a while to do that. And that's sort of, again, that's a picture of what's happening in your brain between loneliness and
Mm.
acting out. So part of it is like addressing the loneliness, taking care of that, but the disuse needs to happen for a period of time so that the reward circuit isn't there and your brain doesn't immediately go to that thing.
Right.
Does that begin to answer that question?
Yeah, I really like the pathway analogy
Mhm.
because it's like if I don't use this path, eventually stuff will grow up
Yeah.
through it. So
Yes.
it's not like I'm stuck forever, but in the short term, the draw is still going to be there
Yes.
because that's the easiest way to alleviate the loneliness
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah. That old friend is right there at the start.
Mhm.
And then we're just kind of slowly moving further and further away from it.
Mhm. Mhm. That's good. So what's the process? Like what's the healing process?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Like it might be helpful to think about this almost like a bit of a reversal of the process of how you got into it.
What do you
So
mean?
well, typically, like porn use escalates over time, either in the intensity of what you're looking at, like it becomes more and more severe, more and more graphic, or more and more violent, or something like
Okay.
that, or more and more sort of in the outlier range of unusual or radical sexual behaviors. Or it escalates in terms of the frequency, so how often you're using it, or the duration in which you're using it, like how long you use it for, that kind of stuff. And so, again, depending a little bit on some guys come into therapy and women, and they can cold turkey it right off the bat and hold that until the sobriety actually comes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But other people like come back to like very vanilla porn all of a sudden. They find a distaste for the extreme stuff that they were doing. And this is also evidence of the
Mm.
brain beginning to like become more sober in that the more extreme that you needed to get the same dopamine hit, you now don't need that
Hmm.
because your
Okay.
frequency and intensity is decreasing. So this is on the tougher end of the spectrum where it's taking time to withdraw from the porn and there's less intense porn use. And while that's not our treatment goal to get to like ordinary porn, it's progress
Right.
in
It's
addiction
part of the
recovery,
healing journey.
part of the healing journey.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at some point, people stop looking at pornography, like sexualized images, usually on their phone. That's kind of the classic consumption place, right? After that, like what I find is it takes a little bit longer sometimes for guys to realize, okay, I can't just watch any old movie that I like, or I can't watch a movie hoping that this kind of sexual content is accidentally going to be there. So there's kind of like loose threads to the addiction that you have to cap off as well.
Okay.
And and then the next sort of challenge that I often find is things like billboards, shopping mall ads for like lingerie stores, like where there are models who are deliberately selling their bodies to objectify it. That's almost like in the porn addictive mindset, that's like a permission giving to look at it
Okay.
in that
Oh.
mindset. And it's not like there's no exposed private parts. So it's not really porn. And this is kind of the rationalization of the brain. And it takes a while for some guys to realize and gals that, okay, I'm still getting a hit out of that, or I'm still looking for that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm getting a little charge or a little excitement or the dopamine circuits going off in there. So it takes a while to come off that. And then the biggest challenge that takes a long time is for most people who have been addicted to pornography, they're just objecting everybody as they're walking around, objectifying everybody as they're walking.
Oh, okay.
And so then it's going to take some time to learn to repersonify the lady in front of you in the checkout line at the store, the waitress, like person on the whatever. And the ultimate challenge is stuff like beaches and swimming pools and stuff like that. Just like, okay, there's an attractive person in a bikini and I don't need to do anything about it. That's fine for them. Good. Next. And I'm not like monitoring them in my peripheral vision or worrying about where they are, but it's just like they're there. I noticed and I moved on with my life.
Okay.
So that almost
That's like a view of others.
it is a view of others.
Yeah.
That can take like you can be sober from pornography for a long time, and that can take like a year or two to settle in.
Okay.
You don't have to be doing therapy that whole time. But because there has been so much, like that's a neural pathway that is so hammered down because you can do that everywhere, every day, every minute if you want.
You don't have to necessarily go looking for it.
No,
It's just handed to you.
no. So that part of the process can take longer.
Okay. Well, speaking of taking longer, like, can we look at timeline? Like, what have you seen in your practice or from theory
Yeah.
of like how long this is actually going to take?
Yes. So I kind of have two models there that I draw from. One is like my sex addiction training that I did with ITAP, where porn addiction falls under that umbrella. And they don't have a lot of detail about pornography addiction because it's usually part of a larger constellation of behaviors for what they're treating when we're talking about sex addiction. So there's a timeline that I have from that is based on a larger set of data that is more researched. But in my experience like I said, over 15 years of treating pornography addicts, I generally find that the clients we see fall into one of three categories.
Okay.
So the first category is, I'm just going to call them mildly addicted people, and they may not feel like this, but it's a frame of reference for me to describe this here. Okay.
Okay.
So when you're mildly addicted, these are often, and I apologize, I work mostly with men. Certainly this is something that affects women as well, but just for my ease of language, I'm going to say guys here for the next little bit.
Mild addiction.
Yeah, there's a group of guys in this mild addiction thing. And I generally find folks in there often just got into pornography out of curiosity at some point in their late boyhood, maybe tweens, maybe even teen years, that kind of thing. And they maybe didn't have a ton of access to it, but when they could, they looked and there was curiosity. Maybe there wasn't much or enough sex education in the home, so it might have started for fairly innocent reasons, or some kid showed them at school. But they had two loving parents and they never had like any major traumas growing up, that kind of stuff. Just curiosity, boredom, hooked, and they're using once or twice a week or once a month, that kind of thing, somewhere in that range. And for them, it usually takes like 2 or 3 months of weekly sessions.
Okay.
So 8 to 12 sessions of therapy to really get down to the bottom of this. I've met a handful of guys in my life that have quit from that level on their own, maybe just with a good buddy doing some journaling and stuff. But there's something weird about this addiction, even for like the mildly addicted ones, that it's really hard to kick it without someone's help. And I think it's because it's fundamentally about an intimacy problem.
Right.
It's like it's solved in the presence of
relationship.
connection.
Yeah.
You solve the problem about the disconnection.
Yeah.
That pornography is a symptom of.
Okay.
So that's the first category. And then what I would say moderately porn addicted this is kind of more in that realm of like something was happening in childhood. Maybe there was a divorce. Maybe there was some loss of a family member. Something traumatic happened there. And if you didn't have the support to process that and you sort of internalized a lot of difficult feelings and then you found an outlet in pornography that let you take care of that. So maybe if you're bullied, it became a source for validation. Or if you grew up in a home where you didn't get any affection from your parents, it became a source of like simulated affection for you. Those are deeper, kind of more subtle wounds. And those generally, I find the work with them is like 4 to 6 months of weekly sessions. So that takes a little bit longer. Still not forever, but you kind of got to go back to that wound or wounds, and you have to heal them. Yeah.
It's not just a matter of stopping the behavior, but like healing what's driving the behavior.
Healing what's driving behavior. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And that's where we find that guys get into the really well-established sobriety is not just like when you kind of find a new sort of set of band-aids to block the porn, change some behaviors, like don't take your phone in the bathroom. But when you actually get down into those roots and you heal that stuff, you can stand in the confidence of that sobriety with much more integrity than if you're just like tried a new set of band-aids.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's mild and moderate.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
said you had 3 levels.
Yeah, actually I have 4.
Oh,
I'm looking at my notes here. So then there's more serious addiction. And again, it's kind of the same story as the last, but there's just more piled on there.
okay.
More things went wrong. There was more difficulties. Maybe there's even been some significant adult life disruptions, 6 to 12 months of weekly sessions, that kind of thing. Or that happens if you had the milder childhood, but you've been using this for decades, because sometimes we do treat folks in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I don't know if we've had a client in their 80s yet, but we have had them certainly up there in age. And then the kind of the most challenging level is like what I would call a very serious addiction or really sex addicted use of pornography. And there is a category of clients where they don't have the behaviors of sex addiction. Like there's no interactions in real life with other people. Okay. But as you kind of get into their story and you realize how sometimes tragic or profoundly challenging their childhood was, and you see this, even sometimes milder pornographic use, just like persisting and relapsing and relapsing and relapsing, you begin to realize that while they've contained their acting out to pornography, the grip of that, the addiction there, is at the level of like a sex addiction. It's really profound and it's really hard. These are folks where you don't get like they quit in the first 2 or 3 weeks of therapy and maybe have a relapse. These are folks that are still struggling like 3 months in or 6 months in.
Okay.
And that requires anywhere from 2 to 5 years of therapy, weekly sessions.
Wow.
We recommend seeing a group as well. But again, we're not just like showing up and talking about pornography every week in a case like that.
Yeah.
We're kind of slowly working through the trauma, the deep attachment wounds of childhood, and doing that deeper healing work that again brings this person not only out of the addiction, but into the ability to have healthy intimacy with another person.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question around the trauma bit?
Yeah.
Because I have heard like, well, I don't have any major trauma. Like I'm scouring my background for trauma because that will give me a reason why I'm addicted over here.
Yeah.
So, like, do you have to have trauma?
You don't have to have trauma. For some people, they don't recognize the trauma that they do have. Okay.
Okay.
So one way to look at trauma is you sometimes hear a big T trauma or a little T trauma.
Yeah.
So big T is like you can point to the car accident you were in. Your sibling got killed in a horrific accident in front of you. That's big T trauma stuff. Small T trauma is like death by 1,000 cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like mild constant bullying throughout your childhood at school, or just living in a dangerous, violent neighborhood where like there were shots at night and night after night, you can't go to sleep feeling safe, even if your family wasn't involved in gangs or whatever.
Yeah.
So those are small T traumas that add up that sometimes people don't recognize.
Okay.
But you also still can have just like attachment disturbances. Like if your parents just weren't able to be there for you in the way that you needed them to be,
Yeah.
they didn't know how to be attuned to you, how to express delight in you, how to offer you opportunities to grow as a little human, how to celebrate you. They didn't know how to protect you, those kinds of things. You might have still had no sort of remarkable traumas, but the absence of that necessary attachment left you longing for something that you could turn to that would feel nurturing or safe or validating or something like that.
Right. Okay. Okay.
In steps porn, because it can simulate that.
Okay. Okay. So we kind of talked about the timeline for mild, moderate, severe. I don't think you used the word severe.
Serious?
Serious.
Severe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does this journey look like? Like, what is the healing journey? What are we doing in the first few sessions versus the last few sessions
Yeah.
type journey?
Yeah. So I'll give a little bit of a timeline, but this is more for like, these are more this timeline stuff is more out of the sex addicted world. So the timelines are for the longer, like if you're doing treatment for 1, 2,
Okay.
3 years, kind of that range of things. They collapse a lot if with simpler or milder or more moderate addictions.
Okay.
Okay. But again, just to give an idea, and the phases are still relevant of this.
Right.
Okay?
Like what
Or
stage
stages.
you're at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the first stage is the crisis stage, and that's just the recognition that there's a problem here. It's kind of the, oh boy, right? And part of what has to happen in that stage is breaking through denial. So this can last for a long time where like a partner, a girlfriend, a wife, or somebody has just been like, hey man, you got to stop this. You got to stop this. You need to deal with it. Okay, I'll quit. I'll stop. I'll put my phone here and I won't do that. And we'll lock the TV and all this kind of stuff, right? And that's the crisis stage. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any progress happening,
Okay.
unfortunately. And that can last for a while. Usually it's like 0 to 3 months when you start sex addiction treatment.
Okay.
Yeah. And like for a person to persist in an addiction where it's negatively impacting others or negatively impacting themselves, they've had to split off their awareness of the consequences.
Right.
So they're in denial about the negative impact that it's happening on themselves and on other people. And as a result, breaking denial is essential in this crisis stage.
Okay.
That's the task. Consequences show up. People in the stage will seek treatment while they're still using.
Right. So it's kind of the decision to like seek
Yes.
treatment, decision,
Yeah.
I need help,
Even if I'm not
acknowledging
sure I'm
that.
going to stop yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Great spot to get into treatment still. Now, the next stage is the shock and withdrawal stage.
Shock and
Shock
withdrawal.
and withdrawal, right? So remember I talked about this thing being an old friend. Well, this is like the shock and withdrawal of I'm going to have to let this thing go.
Oh, like withdrawal symptoms.
Yes.
Okay.
So your brain is actually detoxing in some ways. So there can be sleepiness, headaches, depression, mild depression symptoms, that kind of stuff. Because this thing that you've been getting some excitement from has replaced all other things you've been getting excitement from. And we're taking that out. So we're going to zero excitement.
Right.
And that's hard. It's hard on your system.
Right. And so if you're using to cope with loneliness, now you just have the loneliness.
Now you just have the loneliness.
Yeah.
And that's part of this shock and withdrawal thing is you don't have another way to regulate and take care of the difficult emotions that you've been medicating with this.
Okay.
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 And on top of that, this old familiar friend, you have to grieve the loss of it. Very hard for betrayed partners to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seems a little counterintuitive. Like you're grieving this thing which has hurt me so badly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And from a betrayed partner's perspective, like you shouldn't be sad about this thing that was harming me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. But this is also why we treat addicts separate from partners, because when you sit with a therapist as an addict, they can validate the grief. You can express the grief and work through it. And that is part of how you break this thing.
Right.
Is actually dealing with that. So that's happening there. There can be irritability, anxiety, insomnia, loss of interest in other activities, cravings happen a lot. That's all in this shock and withdrawal, this second stage.
Withdrawal. Okay.
Yeah. For milder addictions, this is usually at least a few weeks long and may show up again in moments later. Like none of this is like you start this, you end it,
right.
And you're in stage 2. It's overlapped and
it's not like a linear
cycling.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So 1 is like the crises, you said, like making the decision to get help. 2 is the shock and withdrawal.
Yeah.
And those symptoms that come with that.
Yeah. So then stage 3 is grief and deeper pain. And this can be around 6 months long for sex addiction.
Wow.
Anywhere from a couple to several weeks on
Okay.
milder end of things, I think I would say here.
What do you mean by deeper pain?
The deeper pain here is often about because you've broken through denial and you no longer have this thing, now you're starting to see your life as it really is, as other people see it.
Okay. Okay.
Because remember, we're not, at this stage, we're not splitting off from consequences anymore. We're
Right.
like in it. Some people have lost their job here. Some people have lost their partner here. Some people have lost the respect of their community here.
Right. Okay. Okay. So this is the deeper pain.
It's like the, oh my goodness, and doubled over and yeah,
Mm,
sobbing for some, for others that have like a well-entrenched habit of suppressing their emotion. They just feel really heavy here. Maybe there's not as much tears.
mm-hmm.
But when I studied to be a certified sex addiction therapist, I think it was Ken Adams. One thing I never forgot him saying as a trainer was the longer you can keep your client in the grief, the deeper their sobriety will be.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because,
Like this stage of acknowledging the pain they've caused others.
yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think the other thing here too, Verlene, is what we talked about in that other episode that we did not too long ago about your brain on porn or
Why can't I stop?
why can't I stop? Something
Yeah.
like that. There's no connection between the desire part of your brain and the consequence part of your brain
Mm-hmm.
when you're addicted. And in this stage, we're letting that consequence part of the brain get really big and aware because you've been denying and pushing that aside or only letting yourself feel that very briefly. And now we are all in that part of the brain.
Mm.
And we want that thing to come back and sort of flood this desire part and pollute it.
Okay.
So it's like, I want to look at porn. Oh my goodness, no way am I going to do that. Like there's an
Right.
instant, like I know what that's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember my wife's face 6 weeks ago when I finally told her. For 6
Right.
months, whatever.
Okay.
Yes, so
Okay.
it is curative to stay in this grief stage as well. And like I said, like part of that though is the loneliness here, and now you're facing your trauma and those attachment wounds, right? So you're looking at all your pain,
Okay.
and you really haven't built a great new support network or any like really well-established coping mechanisms, healthy ones yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just in the raw mess of it. This is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard work.
Okay. So you've
That's the
got
third
like,
stage.
yeah, but it's not just like you're seeing the pain of others and the pain you've caused, or whatever. It's also feeling the pain that you've been trying to mask.
You're facing your own pain.
You're facing your own pain. Like there's a lot of pain in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then how can we move into stage 4?
Okay, so stage 4 is called repair and rebuilding. In sex addiction treatment, this is often around 18 to 36 months. And in the mild end of things, it's around the 8 to 12 week in there is where we start to do this kind of work. And this is really a great phase of therapy because instead of like being so fixated on stopping and quitting pornography, you now become focused on creating new things that you enjoy that are better for you. So we use a tool here called the 3-circle worksheet where your absence list is in the middle, your boundaries are on the outside. That's all about stopping. And then the outer ring is like, what are the good things that I do to take care of all my legitimate human needs that I can focus on that are positive? So instead of like stop, don't, avoid, I'm like, I'm tired. How can I take care of that? I'm hungry. How can I take care of that? I'm lonely. What's a good choice for me to make right now? Oh, reach out to my friend. Right? So you're really beginning to focus on the positive sides of all of these things.
Yeah.
And so folks here are like finding new relationships, they're rebuilding relationships, they're redeveloping or they're developing intimacy. They're setting up goals and routines. They're sometimes changing, sometimes reestablishing. It depends on the context, a support network of people around them. So there's new friendships, relationships. I see people here returning to old hobbies,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff that like sometimes folks like they feel so bad about their porn, they stop going to church or the synagogue or whatever. They start going back because the guilt of that is starting to fade.
Hmm.
And then they're taking care of the spiritual part of themselves. And like, there's just so much, of like the good stuff that happens in this stage 4 repair and rebuilding.
That sounds far more exciting than stage 3. Like
Stage
sitting in
3
this
is hard work.
pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that you have, like, you can't bypass it and go straight to 4, right? Like you have to go through it.
Yeah.
And yet it must just be such a relief to get into this rebuilding and repairing.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah. You got to go back through the dark cloud.
Yeah. Okay. So then stage 5, what's the last
Stage
stage?
5, growth and maintenance. And this is like what we call consolidation. So all that repair work that you've been doing, you're putting that together. The frequency of therapy can slow down here. Often in this phase, this is like 2+ years for sex addicted. Again, it's like that 8 to 12 weeks and beyond thing here. I find there's a couple of things going on. Like one is you're just deepening all the stuff that I talked about.
Mhm.
That's kind of the basis of there. You're also starting at goals and visions for the future. Like people go back to school, they find a better job. Like some of the areas in life where they had been stuck, they're starting to shift in really important ways, which is beautiful to see. There's a couple of key things. Like one is like there has to be this realization that the satisfaction of a well-lived life is better for me than the high that I get from a moment of pornography use. And I wish I knew who said this, but somewhere again, either in my training or in professional development sense, someone said that the brain will continue with the current reward until it finds a better reward. And this is where the brain really latches onto the better reward. My life is so much better without pornography.
Yeah.
And you actually feel that.
Hmm.
This is like the essence of a well-established sobriety,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's going on there. And quite often in this phase too, like people are doing life and something hits them. So we typically like somewhere in the stage 4 or 5, there's a relapse or 2. Something
Okay.
unexpected, a new situation, an old stressor, and the sobriety plan that they had gets tested. And it's like, okay, there's some stuff that we haven't dealt with from your childhood or some emotions that we haven't learned how to regulate. And those are just
Oh.
holes. We find them. We don't shame the person. We patch them really well. So it's like, okay, we know about that now. We know what to do. And so the sobriety gets deepened there as well.
Yeah. So, like, relapses, that's what you're talking about
Yes.
when life hits?
Relapses. Yeah.
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 Okay, so those are, like, the 5 stages
Mhm.
of recovery kinda that we go through. Is there anything else that might affect, like, that timeline?
The timeline. Yeah. Good question. So one of the things that we're looking for in our clients is their level of commitment to the work and their motivation to do the work.
Yes.
And because some people come in more or less mandated, and some people come in desperate on their own
Right.
terms to fix this thing. And that can affect the speed of it. And sometimes, like, folks just have to grapple with and come to terms of, like, I need to do this for myself. And they might want the outcome, but they'll come to therapy, and your therapist can't make you want it. Like, you have to find that deep within yourself.
Right, that intrinsic motivation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that affects the timeline as well. The other thing that can affect the timeline is, especially if you're new to therapy, is your openness to the approaches that your therapist is using. If you have, like, very rigid ideas about emotions or something like that, and you think they don't matter, we have to spend time just working on getting you okay with acknowledging that emotions exist, that you have them, and identifying them in your body.
Mhm, mhm.
So sometimes, like, undoing, like, cultural structures that get in the way, that can extend a timeline as well. I've had, folks that have really strong protective parts, and I'm like, "Well, let's try brain spotting that." Like, "No, I don't wanna try that. That feels weird." "Well, let's try compassion. That feels weak. I don't wanna do that." And it's like, if you're gonna tie all my hands behind my back, this is
Right.
gonna take a lot longer,
Yes.
right? So your
Yes.
openness to the therapist's approaches, not saying you have to accept anything from your therapist or that you should do anything without being informed or giving consent to do it,
Yes.
but there's a mindset component.
Right.
There is a mindset component here. And
Yeah.
it's okay to go slower. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm paid by the hour. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Um, but
But
if you're hurting people, that's something to consider here.
yeah, okay, it's easy to joke about that, but sometimes it's just too much too fast,
It
and they, like,
is.
physically can't get there
Yes.
in the moment.
Yes.
So I think we need to have a little bit of compassion for that too.
Yeah. That kind of brings us back to probably more situations where it's a more severe addiction because there's more severe trauma or attachment disturbances.
Maybe,
And it can
maybe.
just take time to feel like your therapist is going to be a safe person.
Yeah,
And we'll move at the client's pace 100%. Like, we get that.
yeah,
You've never had like a really safe, really confidential person. And this is like some tough stuff to talk about.
yes,
That takes time.
yeah.
So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Like, there's no
Yeah.
shame. There's no shame in having to go slower,
No. Yeah.
just acknowledging where you're at.
You're still doing good work in
Yes,
the time that it's taking.
yes. Yeah.
And then the other thing here too, Verlinda, is the quality of your support network. So if you're quite isolated, that I think will slow therapy down. I don't have like hard data on this.
Interesting. Okay.
It can be good to get into like a group, like an SA group, a pure desire group, something like that, because you almost get like an instant network and you can form bonds with these other people fairly quickly. And that gives you another spot to feel supported and connected and to
Hmm.
talk about this addiction.
Right.
It's like
And
a
that
real-time journal with other people.
and it even lowers the shame. Like, shame is a huge pornography use driver, right?
A lot of people think I'm the only guy in my office that struggles with this, in my church that
Right.
struggles with this, in my class that struggles with this. You get into a group where there's a bunch of people and you realize it's common. You don't feel so isolated, reduces all that shame, like you said.
Yeah.
That can
That's
help
good.
expedite the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk for a minute about relapse?
Yeah,
Address relapse? Like,
just about relapse.
does that mean I'm hooped, I'm so broken, I'm not fixable?
Well, in the CSAT, the sex addicted side of things, they say there's like 60 to 75% relapse rate in the first year.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm always cautious about how I say this, but relapses are a part of recovery.
Right. I can see why you'd be cautious because you're not using that as an excuse.
If you're using it as an excuse, it's part of your addiction, not your recovery.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the other thing that I found is like
Mhm.
you have people that are relapsing every 3 weeks. And it's like, I don't think you're relapsing every 3 weeks. I think you act out every 3 weeks and you have an
There's a
addiction.
bit of a cycle going. Yeah.
And maybe it sounds better to your partner and yourself who are struggling to have some hope for you that this is called a relapse. But I mean, if we're in a cycle,
Mhm.
and sometimes again, that's what happens in therapy. Like you name the hard truth and you're like, okay, I got to face this dragon.
Right.
So that's
Right.
relapses.
Yeah.
And but it's just normal, Verlinda, that like you have things going on in your life. And in that context, you get sober and you solve it. And then like the economy crashes or your dad passes away. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden there's a big blow. And I'm not saying you should relapse. It's awesome if you don't and you turn to the choices, the good
Yeah.
choices that
That you
you
have there.
established.
Yeah.
But again, sometimes those just expose areas that we haven't got to yet in therapy. And it's like, bring it in. It's data. We're not going to shame you. We're going to look at the data and we're going to help you figure out how can I handle the big moments in life, like the really hard ones too,
Right.
not just the grind that was
Right.
medicating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that
Okay.
okay on relapses?
Yeah, I think so.
So thanks for joining us today for this episode. We're very glad that you've taken the time to listen all the way through. And we just want you to know and make an invitation to you that if this has described any part of your experience and you're like, you know what, I need to get in there, I need to get some help. A great first step to do is to go to our site at therapivo.com. We do have a page specifically, if you look in our counseling menu, about porn addiction recovery and that type of thing, and schedule a consultation with one of our team members. And that's just a free 20-minute phone call where there's no obligation, there's no high pressure. We'll hear about your story, about your situation. We always treat all of those calls in a very professional way so that if there's something sort of extraordinary or unique and we are not the right people to treat you, we'll make a couple of other recommendations of resources that you can work with. But if your situation is something that is well within our wheelhouse that we're quite used to dealing with, we'd be happy to help you. We can help you find someone on the team who you think would be a good fit, whose schedule matches yours, and get you started with some Zoom video counseling. It's a super effective way to treat therapy. For the clients that come to us who are committed and who want to be in recovery, our success rates are incredibly high. We can't promise a cure, but that has been my observation. If this video was helpful to you at all, please hit like, please hit subscribe, and we'd love to see you again in the future. And you can get the full show notes for this show on our website at therapivo.com/293.